Yo, it's come inside of me. I'm Tony. I'm not looking my best. I'm not feeling my best, but I'm here. It's dry hump day, Wednesday. I haven't dry humped y'all in a while because of my back spasm and then truly forgetting I had a podcast to dry hump you with. But here I am. I'm in the midst of drinking coffee. And so, couple questions. Am I going to shit my pants during this podcast? Potentially. Also, the sound of drinking might be annoying, and I'm sorry about that, but I have to go see a healer. I have to go get magnets at 12:30. So, I don't know. This was the only time I had to do this today. So, we're going to have to negotiate like a sipping sound. And of course, I could edit it out, but I don't. I do 3 of these a week when I remember, and I'm not going to go editing out my sips, all right? That just feels like oppressive. That feels like white supremacy. Editing out a sip. So if you have misophonia, I'm sorry. I also have misophonia. I don't like hearing people eat or enjoy themselves. Drinking. I also eat watermelon like some sort of rabid possum. Even though I know possums actually don't get rabies, the way I eat watermelon is upsetting. It's an auditory assault. So speaking of assault, let's talk about Jeffie Eppie. Let's talk about P. Diddy and these legal tomfoolery. Am I allowed to say tomfoolery? I actually do not know the origins of tomfoolery. Anytime I say some old-timey thing, I'm like, is this rooted in racism? Probably. There's a lot that's rooted in racism, obvi, but if tomfoolery is one of them, please let me know. I don't want to be unconsciously and ignorantly saying old-timey racist stuff. All right, here we go with this sip. Hold on, let me see. No, it's annoying. It's annoying. I'm not going to say it's not fucking annoying. But I don't have a personality without coffee. I mean, maybe I do, but I don't have a will to live without coffee. My personality is drabby without it. And people always say, you're not supposed to drink coffee. The amount of people on the internet told me that I'm not supposed to drink coffee. What am I supposed to do with my life? How am I supposed to have a will to continue without some sort of just mental Kickstarter, you know? I'm supposed to just like pull it in from the cosmos, just wake up wanting to live. Nah, not gonna. I don't think I've ever woken up and been like, I'm so glad I'm here. Every morning when I wake up, I am upset. I wake up in depression and then I ease into feeling like a person that is less depressed than the person that woke up. But I have never once in my life woken up in a good mood. No, I wake up in complete dread. All right, let's talk about Jeffie Eppie. Listen, I've been talking about this for a long time. And the reason why I've been talking about this for a long time is because I've known about the sex trafficking political rings for decades. I truly have. Not because I'm bragging that I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because this has been on my radar for a really long time. Look, I'm going to take big sips so we don't have to do too many of those. So the first time the political sex trafficking came on my radar was when I was in my early 20s. And I know I've podcasted about this before on different people's podcasts and on a podcast I do, Gnarly Girls, but it's important for you to understand that there are, like, how do I say this? When you look at the sex trafficking, like, what is sex trafficking, right? So people just think, oh, you're just like moving people over borders. No, sex slavery and sex trafficking, your barista could be someone who's sex trafficked. Many people that are like walking amongst us could be victims of sex trafficking and sex slavery. It's about complete and utter mental manipulation and having human bodies be performing tasks that they do not want to be performing of the sexual nature in order for social control. So what do I mean by that? Like, what is the social control of sex slavery? Let's talk about the tapes. Let's talk about the bribery. Let's talk about the bipartisan nature of all of this. Oh, so the reason why I mentioned my own personal relationship to the Jeffie Eppie scenario is that when I was living in New York City in my early 20s, I was friends with a lot of models. Not to brag. And these models were often talking about. Wait, I do have a funny story to tell you about. Let me just tell you a funny story about me hanging out with models. Because look, I am 5'10". I am skinny. That is my body type. It's tall and stretched out. I'm giving Gumby. My face is fine. I have a fine old face. It's not like, whoa, but it's like, okay, that's a face, you know? I have tits. I have a butt. I'm okay. Am I model material? Absolutely not. But when, when I was in my 20s, I would sometimes get confused. Like, I would confuse men or I would confuse society because they'd be like, wait, does she belong here? I think that was a lot of the questions that people were asking was like, does she belong here? So when I was in this crew of models, this is what would happen. You would have like these Wall Street guys invite these girls to come to fancy dinners and to come out to the clubs with them. So you would go to Nobu, which is like a really super expensive sushi restaurant in New York. I'm sure there's one in London and one in Ibiza. There must be one in Ibiza. You know, Nobu is like a very snobby restaurant. So there's a Nobu in New York. There's a couple of restaurants like that where the Wall Street guys would bring models to the restaurant. They would pay for everything, obviously, and then you would go to the club and you as the models would get the guys into the club. And it would be like a scene, and then you would be in the club and they would have bottles. It was very like Jay-Z in that sense, you know, like popping bottles in the club. So I was alive during that time and I was friends with some of these people. I was not like model material in my outfits. I was going more for like, I am a skater because I would skateboard. And I genuinely cannot walk in high heels. Me walking in high heels is like a giraffe that was just born and is still wet with placenta trying to stand, okay? I cannot take 3 steps in a high heel shoe. So I would wear sneakers. I would bring my skateboard because I truly was skateboarding everywhere. I was always sweaty. I was never not sweaty, and I always had a backpack. It was giving teen runaway. But I was tall, I was skinny, and I had some hot model friends. So I would sometimes just like get folded into these scenarios. Okay, so this was the unspoken rule when you would go to Nobu, you would go to these restaurants, is that you weren't supposed to eat. You were a model. You were supposed to just sit there and be pretty and like maybe have a glass of champagne. But like, I'm a hungry bitch, okay? I truly was like skateboarding 16 miles a fucking day. So I would get to these restaurants, my dude, and I would fucking eat, I swear to God, like $700 by myself, maybe $800. I would just be shoving this sashimi in my mouth. I would fucking eat. And these Wall Street guys were like, who the fuck is this fucking hungry bitch? Get her the fuck out of here. Never invited twice. Never invited twice by the same man. I was always just like duping these guys to get a meal. So point being, long story long, is these girls would talk about the rape plane. All right, a lot of them would talk about the rape plane. And the rape plane was connected to Jeffrey Epstein, was connected to Bill Clinton, and was also connected to the Girls Gone Wild guy. You know, the girls that would lift their shirts? I can't remember his name. These are the guys these girls were talking about. So look, I don't know how to, what do I say? Allegedly, okay? I'm just hearing this from human beings. But they were talking about this. You know, they're like, oh, we don't want to go on the rape plane. So obviously, there was something going on in the early 2000s where models were aware that there was a dangerous plane that Bill Clinton would go on, and they called it the rape plane. And I remember the name Jeffrey Epstein, and it was all out in the open. And I think that's the other thing that I want to be really clear about is that this was never like secretive. You know, it was kind of, it's like the Weinstein thing. People know what's going on. There is a system in place. It's not just like, oh, let's keep it all under wraps. Like, nah, it was systematic. It was cataloged. It was organized. So that's the other thing about the list and the tapes and the proof, right? I mean, why would Jeffrey Epstein ever even go to jail if there wasn't proof, if there wasn't something to put him there, right? So, okay, here we go with another sip. It's going to be big. There's only going to be 2 more of those, all right? I swear. So, why are they doing this, right? Why are these elites going around grapo, everybody? Why is Hollywood so grapo? I got a couple theories. All right, theory number 1 is around the fact that these people do not live within the system of the law, right? It's like you don't have the law pertaining to you when you're a billionaire. Elon Musk is not like, oh shit, I forgot my passport before I got on my private jet. No, the amount of corporate corruption, the amount of, I don't know what just like came from my body. If it was like a demon, I don't know if you heard that, but like something just released from my body. I mean, I guess it could have been like gas, but you know what I mean. It was like a reverse fart. That's funny that like a burp is a reverse fart. It's a mouth fart. Why don't we call burps mouth fart? Anyway, it's a mouth queef. I've been talking about queefs a lot lately on this podcast because of Queef Car of Monday's podcast, which I will be manufacturing. Okay, last sip. I can do this. We're done. All right, so when you live above the law, what is your sexual orientation? What is the sexual orientation for a person who doesn't have any rules, right? And I think we all know the progression of porno culture and how porno culture will desensitize you. You know, like I remember seeing 2 dicks go into one ass, which is, in my opinion, too many dicks in one ass. Maybe even perhaps too many dicks in one ass. But goddess bless, a lot of people like a dick in the ass. You have to really relax. You have to get used to it. You have to prepare. But 2 dicks in one ass, it's a lot of dicks. And once I saw 2 dicks go into one ass, I was never the same. I am not the same person. The pre 2 dicks in one ass and post 2 dicks in one ass, Tony, there is a huge difference in the psychology of these people. I never knew that 2 dicks in one ass was even possible. And then once I understood that, you can't go back. So the point is that when you live above the law, you become increasingly perverted in all sorts of ways, right? You become perverted within your relationship to capitalism. You become perverted within your relationship to wealth. You become perverted within your relationship to power. It is going to extend into your sexual orientation, period. It just will. That is what is going to happen. And so eventually someone's going to be like, hey, you want to fuck a kid? And people do it. I think it's a progression. I don't think you go from like getting elected into office to immediate kid fucking. I think it takes some ceremony. I think it takes some time. I think it takes some initiation, but you're gonna get there. So this is the other thing I wanna mention is that why are they doing this? A lot of it is around blackmail, potentially. So you film someone fucking a kid. And then you're like, oh, you want to protect the land? You want to protect the water? You want to go against Nestle and say, you can't put poison here, Nestle? Well, here's a video of you fucking a kid. Now what? And you're like, oh, pretty sure Nestle can poison the water here. So it is a form of blackmail. And I mean, I think that's the thing that the Puffy conversation was really bringing up. Okay, let's talk about the Puffy thing too. Why are Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg friends? What brought those 2 together? Well, they were both at Puffy parties, unfortunately, fucking sex traffic victims. raping them. They're not even fucking them. They're raping. I mean, they're grapo. That is what we have to understand, is that it is unconsensual. So Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg are bonded over grape. And that's a lot to take in, because I think we all thought, oh, what a cute little pairing. And then I'm like, wait, both of these people were at the white parties? It's sad. It's sad. It's upsetting. It is upsetting. I am a huge fan of hip hop. I love hip hop. Hip hop is like, it's a big part of my life and my soul and my spirit. And like, I feel most myself dancing to hip hop music, and that is not hyperbole. So the fact that hip hop is being exposed is upsetting to me, but let us be clear. It is not just in hip hop. It is in Hollywood, as we know. It is in all music. It is not just delegated to like one subsection, okay? It is ubiquitous. So what am I trying to say? The fact that both of these really huge cases with a lot of evidence, a lot of public interest, a lot of public conversation too. You know, I don't know if you're on TikTok at 3 a.m. If you didn't follow Allie Carter's story, you don't know the story of Puff Daddy. If you don't follow Jaguar Wright, you don't know the story. I mean, you have to really take the time to dig into the personal stories of people, and then you can be the judge of whether or not you believe them. I think that's the thing that's really important when we're talking about like very extreme accusations, right? When I listen to Allie Carter, who is one of the people that has been speaking out about the sex trafficking for a long time, when you watch these people, when you really listen, you know, that is where you have that heart connection to a story with no agenda. So let's also be clear. Nobody like is going, okay, wait, I actually am going to backtrack what I'm about to say. But what I was about to say is that it is very rare that somebody would accuse someone of grapo for like fake reasons. However, I do want to acknowledge that white women would accuse black men of grapo for fake reasons, and that is fucking real, okay? I am not denying that. That is a big part of what was going on in America through Jim Crow, during slavery. Not cool. So yes, white women accusing black men of grapo is part of our historical context. That must be understood and looked at. However, I don't think that the women coming forward accusing Jeffie Eppie, accusing the P. Diddy sex ring, that they're being grapo are just like doing it for shits and gigs. All right, they are putting themselves in a massive amount of danger. I believe these people. Oh, we also have to remember that, okay, like remember the photograph with Prince Andrew? You know, so why did both of these stories really get buried at the same time? And I really do believe, from the depths of my soul, from the bowels of my being, from my pineal to the labias, that it's because this is a genuinely bipartisan issue. Both political parties are engaging in this activity. And we see it with Donnie Trump and Billy Clinton. Let's just look at those two. I mean, we all know Joey Biden is sniffing the hell out of young people. We know this, okay? But I think when it comes to Epstein specifically, both Billy Clinton and Donnie Trump are connected. So that, I think, the confusion, the mental confusion around, wait, I thought the other party was the like adrenochrome sex trafficking party, and my party is the party that doesn't do that. I think that psychology of like, I think people can think to themselves, oh, the Republicans are grapos or the Democrats are grapos, but to understand that they truly are both doing that together, I think that's where the cognitive dissonance happens. And that is, I think, a really powerful place of potential collaboration. You know, if we could all just be like, no, 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 you both are grapo. Because the graping of humans really very much extends to the graping of nature, to the graping of us, to the graping of the citizenship. You're not going to go around and grape a kid and not grape everything else. You know, like once that happens, once your psychology goes that far into the grape consciousness, because grape is a consciousness. I think that's the other thing that's very important to understand. It's not just about the action of, you know, like inserting things into people. No, it is a consciousness of domination. It is a consciousness of exploitation. It's a consciousness of causing pain to another person for one's own pleasure, right? So that is going to extend its tentacles, its octopi tentacles, into every single facet of your behavior pattern. If you're going to grape a person, especially a young person, the impact on your consciousness and your psychology, it has done its work. And I think that's the thing that we have to understand, is the point of making people do this. Okay, now I actually think I'm fully understanding it, is that when you push someone through whatever ceremony, through whatever initiation rites, through whatever process, I do genuinely in my heart believe it is a process. It is like the process of the boiling of the, you know, poor lobsters and stuff. But once you get there, once you grape a sex trafficked victim, it's like your soul has been, affirmation of the watch, y'all. Your soul has been annihilated. And then you, as the politician, as the businessman, as the celebrity, are ultimately completely under the control of the system, right? Not only is it about the blackmail, it's about what you did. It's about what you sacrificed. And I'm not just like saying that in hyperbole. I know I've said the word hyperbole twice within one podcast, but I am not being hyperbolic. I'm being genuinely sincere. You know, and it's like once your behavior does something that's so grapey, you are going to grape in every single situation. And that is how you're going to justify genocide. That is how you're going to justify the war culture. That is how you're going to justify the complete and utter irrational graping of the planet, which is bonker pants. It is bananas. It is not so, but so. Two dicks in the butt so. It is bizarre. But because you've graped you, not being you, the person listening, but the politician, because you've been graping, you will keep graping. So then what is it doing to us as a citizenship when they gaslight us to such a degree where who the heck was like, no, I think Jeffie Epstein is like, he's a solid dude. I think that was a bipartisan understanding. We were all like, yeah, this guy is not cool. And the question was like, how connected is Trumpo? How connected is Billy Clinton? Are they? Just because you have a picture with someone doesn't mean you're graping with them, right? But there are a lot of pictures of Donald Trumpo with Jeffie Epstein. But it's like, okay, obviously they're hanging out. I personally don't think I'm hanging out with a lot of people that are like running sex trafficking rings. Personally, I'm not. Definitely like not getting my picture taken with them like throughout decades of time. I think he would get hip to it. But I think what they're trying to do, why is the gaslighting so important? Like, this is the thing I made a video about the other day, is like, I am surprised that the Puffy thing even got into trial, even though I don't think they were focusing enough on this. It's like they were focusing too much on Puffy the individual, right? They were like, oh yeah, this guy does some shitty shit. Sure, but Puffy was part of a bigger system. You know, the more I thought about the Cosby thing, the more you really kind of think about Usher, Justin Bieber, all these people. It is clear that these people are victims before they are perpetrators. You know, I do think that Bill Cosby becoming as powerful and as successful as he did as a black man in the 80s was not easy. And he really did like bridge this gap of race, you know? There was a lot of interesting things that that show was doing around race relations in America that was profound. He was given a platform that was unprecedented. And it's like in exchange for that platform, because what he was doing was so radical, he was graped. You know, like it's like, okay, well, you can have this platform, but we will own your soul by graping you. And then how do you process that? How do you metabolize that? How do you digest that? You grape. You make sense of grape through grape. It's almost like it's like the circumcision ritual. I'm not trying to, you know, I'm going to talk about female circumcision. Well, it's male circumcision too. It's hard, you know, because I'm not trying to like whitewash other people's cultural um, actions and ceremonies, you know? So I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about this. So I'm sorry if I'm not allowed to talk about this. But what I'm trying to do is kind of talk about the passing. It's like genital mutilation. I think we can all agree that genital mutilation is problematic. And I understand it is part of certain cultures, and maybe me talking about it is also problematic. Okay, I'm not clear. But genital mutilation, especially for female circumcision, where they really do fuck your shit up. All right? And then sometimes you have problems peeing, like you can't enjoy sex. A clitorectomy is it's upsetting because I don't like the thought of it. I'm trying to be culturally sensitive and yet also talk about a clitorectomy is upsetting. But it's like mothers do this to their daughters because it happened to them by their mothers, right? So why would a mother perform or like allow a clitorectomy to happen to their daughter? Because it happened to them and you have to make sense of it. You're like, oh, it hurts every time I have sex my whole life. There has to be a reason for that. So therefore, I must believe in the fact that this happened to me for a reason. And the ultimate way to prove that there was a reason is to continue it, is to continue the action. So even though, yes, it is very painful for a person to experience a clitorectomy and then to continue to have like very painful vagina pain, I'm sure in multiple contexts, you continue it in order to be like, this happened to, you have to make sense of it, you know? So I think that is what's happening with the grapo culture. You know, like I'm sure Usher was graped. I'm sure of it. And how does he make sense of it? He grapes. He convinces himself that he must have wanted it, deserved it, it was part of it. And I think that is the thing where I have endless empathy for, even though it's very upsetting that people continue the pain cycle. It's so sad. The pain cycle, the trauma cycle is it is heart wrenching. But I think we have to understand why it happens in order for it to be addressed. We can't just be like, oh yeah, Puffy's a pervert. I mean, also there was some like genuine black magic going on with the semen. There was like if you were really look at a lot of the behavior around these acts, people like to say, oh, it's kinky. It's kinky. Is it kinky, or is there some sort of like very intentional and I say the word black magic not because I think white magic is necessarily good. So maybe black magic is, look, how do we not be racist when talking? I don't mean black people magic, obviously, but dark magic with semen. What is happening with the semen on the pizza? His mom was doing stuff with his semen. Okay. Point being. Okay, so all right, when we look at all the Puffy stuff, all right, look at when we have all right, here we go. What is it that we really want to take away? Is that they are gaslighting us, they being the powers that be, to even though our guts know that something very wrong was happening with the Puff Daddy situation and something very wrong was happening, like, and it was bigger than Puff Daddy and it was bigger than Jeffrey Epstein. I think we all know that. And now they're like, no, that was never a thing. It was just those people. It was just Puff Daddy. It was just Jeffrey Epstein. There isn't a list. No one else is involved. That level of gaslighting is its own social control. It is pushing us. It's like the same way there is the social control of pushing people to grape in order to control them. It's the same social control of asking us to accept grape, to deny grape, to absorb grape as a means of social control. And it's asking us to abandon our own humanity. And it's asking especially the Trumpies, I think, who really did have a movement behind this subject. I mean, there was a lot of talk about this within like the Trumpy community, because Trumpy was a part of talking about it. It's confusing, right? It's this whiplash of having to then swallow and deep throat a narrative that in your body you know is not true in order to still support your political candidate and support your identity. That's the thing, is that Trumpiness isn't just about politics, it's about identity. And so they're asking all of these people to swallow your intuition in order to maintain your identity. And that is a method of social control. That is its own initiation in order to keep getting people to relinquish their sense of humanity, to relinquish their intuition in order to maintain their identity. And that is the psyop. That is the way that they are proving to us that they have our psychology in the palm of their hands. Do you dig what I'm saying? And if we want to actually have a revolution, it is within our consciousness, and it is within maintaining our own sense of humanity and leaving space and empathy and compassion and understanding for the bigger picture of why this is important. None of this is accidental. I think that's the thing we have to really also understand. This is not accidental. There is a conscious effort to pummel us with gaslighting in order for us to get so twisted and turned up that we start to just feel nihilistic, hopeless, or even worse, believe the lies that we know are so obviously lies, or the mental gymnastics that people have to do to now make sense of this new reality. You know? And also it's indicative of like people who are sex trafficked are dehumanized when their stories are completely annihilated, right? Like imagine going through all of that and then to be like, sorry, well, yeah. And all the people that have experienced sexual assault, rape, that were feeling vindicated by some sort of potential of accountability. Imagine how just deflating it is to be like, oh, okay, I guess nobody does care. And what that does to your humanity within that context. I mean, I think it's an assault on our humanity, our intuition, and our sense of self. And that's why it is not accidental. And I think that's what we have to really look at, is how rather than just being like, I know we want to blame. I know we want to blame. But that is not going to be how we transcend. It just isn't. Transcending will be through us genuinely processing, composting, and fertilizing the ground of our own emotional humanity. We must feel the pain. We must feel the sorrow. We must feel the utter disappointment of this, but also understand why it is psychologically important for us to not allow ourselves to be manipulated within this context. Yeah. So, where do we go from here? Where do we go? I gotta go to my healer for my back. get some magnets done. I think we go with the fact of we have to actually make space for conversations for people that are now trying to do the mental gymnastics to be like all the influencers, all the right-wing influencers, like, are we still talking about Epstein? What? Isn't that old news? Isn't that old news to talk about Epstein? Let's get out of the rhetoric. Let's get out of the talking points that were given by the administration, by the powers that are trying to annihilate our sense of understanding of the world. We must, from like every fiber of our being, not allow the propaganda to work on us. I think that's what we have to keep doing. And extending arms, genuinely extending arms to like open the conversation of renegotiating, right? We have to renegotiate. We can't just sit in the identity of like, I'm a Trumpy or I'm not a Trumpy. We must renegotiate that like, we are citizens that must extend our arms to each other, even though you want to choke a bitch. Respect. I want to fucking choke a bitch that is trying to be like backpedaling on this Epstein stuff. But we cannot have that energy because that is the same vibration of the chaos. So even though you might at one point want to take your hands and squeeze, instead you open them. I'm trying, y'all. We must keep trying. Okay, I'll see you Friday. I love you. I'm doing what I can. Wish me luck in my healing session. Bye.